Look how beautiful you look with that beautiful hat. Now, how long? Rob Staton, of course, Seahawks Draft Blog. It's brought to you by Superior Linen Service, pucksports.com. We'll get into all that. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, yada, yada, yada. Okay. God, I love that hat. Look at my hat. I've had this since I was a kid. This corduroy Seahawks hat, if you're watching on YouTube. How long you been a Seahawks fan?
2006.
Okay. So you never remember these uniforms. You didn't grow up with them. You saw pictures of them, right?
Correct.
And then when they brought them out this year, how beautiful were they? I'll be honest with you, I teared up. I did.
Seriously.
Rob, you got to understand, this is when I was 10 years old. Like when you become a sports fan, right? And I was so devastated when because do you know the backstory with this? When they got rid of this uniforms, do you know the backstory on it?
No, I've never heard the backstory.
So they're making this transition. They're like, it's got to be a new era. We need to have new uniforms. And so they let the fans vote, apparently. Now, I think it was a sham. I don't think they really voted. They let the fans vote on whether or not to keep the helmets, silver helmets or blue helmets. And they allegedly say that the fans voted for the blue helmets. Now, I think it was BS. I just think that they did it. Hey, let's make it seem like the fans decided to do this. I think they were going to go to those blue uniforms and the blue helmets all the time. But that was the vote. They said the fans got to vote. And it was the biggest mistake they've ever made. I know they won a Super Bowl in those old uniforms, but these ones that they have the hat you're wearing, the logo, the colors, they're the best. Full time.
When they wore them against Cleveland, it was just a lot of the best uniforms in the league. And when you're looking at these other teams, I just think simpler is better. Traditional is better. They look fantastic. And it's not something that I spend a lot of time worrying about what the jerseys are and stuff like that. But when you actually have that, when you actually saw that for the Cleveland game and for the Dallas game and all of the different combinations, I hate the green jersey. I hate it when they try and they use the sort of the gray pants with the blue jersey, with the blue helmet. It just doesn't work for me. I know some people like that. It doesn't work for me. If you're going to do that, just go back to the throwback. If they announce that next season, because they can't do it now, Paul, I'd be celebrating because it's just such a sharp look, clean look.
Well, and because it's newer now, right? So the newer design, newer colors, all that. You wait. You know what's even better than what the uniforms they wore last year against the Browns and the Cowboys is when they wear the white tops. White tops
the road
look even better with the silver pants, and it's just they're the best. Speaking of uniforms, we'll move on. Did you see the Browns? You brought up the Browns. They're going back. I think they're going back full time, permanently to the Bernie Kosar, the Biner, the Mac uniforms, which are hideous back in the day, but yet glorious.
Yeah, I've seen the Detroit Lions ones leaked today, and they are what they are. Houston are tweaking theirs. Denver's going to have a new uniform this year.
They should go back to their originals.
I think they potentially are. And then the one thing I'd love to see, Puck, is the Dolphins go back to the old logo. You know, the old Dolphin, not that stupid new thing they've got. Just go back to that and go old school. For me, it's like if you can sort of tap into that tradition and that history, that's always better. So, there's just something about, when you see a Green Bay uniform, it's the Packers. Same with the Cowboys. And I think with the Seahawks went back to their traditional uniforms and the Dolphins went back to their and stuff like that, it just makes the game better. It just looks better.
Okay, last thing on this talk, and you're like, why am I on here to talk about uniforms? Hey, European football, do they tinker as much with uniforms?
Yeah, so they changed them. What they used to do is they used to change them every 2 seasons. Then some bright spark had the idea that we can sell even more of these things and make even more money if we change them every year. So every team changes them every year. So what you'll get, Puck, is one of the teams will have a classic, uniform. Everybody loves it. And then after, they'll wear it for like 9 months and then they'll change it for something hideous. And then you have to live with that for a year. So... And some of them are appalling, and it's just the game over here is just obsessed with money. So I'm glad the NFL stayed away from that. But go back to the old uni seal. I think there's a lot of fan pressure for them to go back, Puck. So I'm hoping it's going to pay off. And every time they post about the new unis, I'm always on Twitter saying, bring these back. So if everybody does that as well, they'll get the message.
Everybody wants them back. All right. How excited are you? Rob joins us every week. It's brought to you by Superior Linen Service, family owned and operated since 1926. Superior Linen Service provides the highest quality of products and service to the greater Puget Sound area. Get a free quote today at suplinen.com. Give them a call at 253-383-2636. Big thanks to John and the entire crew over there at Superior Linen Service for making it possible. Every week we get to talk to Rob Staton, Seahawks Draft Blog.com. Check out his YouTube page and social media, X at Rob Staton. How excited are you? 1 week as we record this now until the NFL draft, day one. You can't wait.
No, can't wait. And, this time next week, it's, that day just drags forever. Because for me, the draft starts at 1 o'clock in the morning. So you've got the whole day to wait until the draft begins. It's the most exciting part of this aspect of an NFL season. The final week, I always feel it's a little bit like Christmas. You have all of the excitement and the build-up, and then it all is over in no time at all. So you've kind of got to enjoy this last week. There's a lot of rumors doing the rounds. This is what I quite like about this time of year. There's a lot of things to occupy your mind. A lot of this player's going to go in the top 10. Like they're all talking about Byron Murphy today's destined to go earlier than people think. You've seen all these reports about Michael Penix is going to go in the top 10, or Michael Penix is someone's going to trade up for Michael Penix. It's all this stuff. So I kind of enjoy all that stuff, though, just to hear it all, just to imagine what's going to happen and see how it's going to play out. But I am fascinated to see what the Seahawks are going to do, because this is the first draft with Schneider and Macdonald, and it feels like it's a really important draft for that reason. I think it's very easy to imagine they're going to do something that just seems sensible and safe and normal and everyone can kind of get on board with. But I quite like the idea of something chaotic, something that's going to be divisive, that people are going to want to debate about, that might set this franchise either on a course for glory or a course to disaster.
Well, we'll get into something decisive that could fracture is the whole Macdonald decision, what he's doing inside the facility. I'm going to ask you your opinion on that one, because I'm curious your thoughts on that storyline. That is just a huge storyline out here in Seattle. You wrote about it, Seahawks Draft Blog, and I agree with you. It just seems like at 16, they love to trade down. All right, they love to acquire more picks. They don't have a second-round pick. They got 2/3. But he likes to acquire more picks. He's always been known as a GM that wants to trade down. Doesn't necessarily trade up. Although we did talk to, you can listen to it, separate podcast, Mike Garofolo of the NFL Network, who's also on Thursdays along with you, talking about how this could be the year that they move up, especially if things fall out in front of them and they see one of these defensive tackles that they like. But you wrote about it, Seahawks Draft Blog, and just kind of going over the draft and looking at Dane Brugler's draft there as well from The Athletic, and saying, this is the year there's going to be a talented player, clearly, and a guy that's going to help this football team at 16. And staying at 16 is like the wise and prudent decision to make because of the players that are going to be there. And do you get that sense and that desire to remain at 16 and get a talented football player, as you wrote, just take the most talented guy and move on?
Yes, I think that makes a lot of sense, because I just think every time you may have done this yourself, Puck, I'm sure many of your listeners have done, you go on these mock draft simulators and you kind of make some trades and you can go into the 20s or the 30s or whatever. And every single time I'm on one of these simulators, I'm never that excited about the players that are left. And when I do my own mock drafts and I think, okay, I'm going to do a mock draft now, and I'm going to project the Seahawks trade to, let's say, 22 to the Eagles, 25 to the Packers, 32 to the Chiefs. And whenever it gets to Seattle's pick, I always sit there going, I don't want any of these players. Like the player that I wanted was at 16. So I want the Seahawks to do, ideally have more picks, Puck, because there's a lot of players in the second day that you'd love to have, but not at the expense of getting a really good player for the trenches. And that's what this draft is. It's a trenches draft, very heavy on offensive tackles, very good at, defensive line as well. It just feels like they've got a great chance to get somebody in that area, and therefore trading down just for the sake of getting, I don't know, an early third round pick or something like that doesn't really float my boat.
You wrote again, and I would just encourage everyone to go read Rob's work. I mean, my God. I mean, the amount of effort you put into this is just remarkable. SeahawksDraftBlog.com. No one is doing it better than this guy. All right. Trust me. If you're listening to this, watching this, no one is doing it better. But you know what? You guys already know that. But I like to remind everybody and all our listeners that as well. And for, you know what? Actually, there's probably some new people on here that are watching this, Rob, and listening to this. And they're like, why is a Brit on here? Rob is in London. Okay. And you probably wondered, he's in England. You probably wonder, why is he watching the draft at 1 a.m.? Well, because he's overseas. So are you going to sleep at all? Like, are you going to get a nap in before this thing starts? Do you go from like 8 to 11 and then get up, or what's your schedule going to be like?
I've kind of mastered the art of living without much sleep. So there's I think you have to if you're going to be an NFL fan over here. Like I'm not alone in that regard. But I will not sleep on Thursday before the draft. Then I will watch the draft, which will finish about 5 o'clock in the morning. And then I will immediately do article, stream, go to bed, probably when my kids wake up for school. Probably get about 3 or 4 hours sleep in. And then it's up and you've got to get on it again. You know, day 2's coming up. The Seahawks are going to have at least one pick. What if they've traded down and got some more stock? I've got to write about it. I'll do a second round mock. I'll do a stream. And then we've got, you know, obviously day 2. It's all broadcast on the TV over here, which I'm grateful for because it didn't used to be. And then straight through to day 3. And then what happens at the end of day 3 is that's it. Have a rest. Now, a year ago, it was problematic because I was actually hosting an end of season awards do for one of the big soccer teams in the area that I work the day of the third day of the draft. So that the draft finished, I was like I've been on a 3-day bender essentially, and then had to go and host this awards do. So on the photographs, I look like a zombie, but that's kind of the challenge with it. But it is how it is. I remember going to. Can you remember when the Seahawks beat the Niners in 2012 and they hammered them at Lumen Field?
Right.
And
yeah.
I used to do the breakfast sports news on our breakfast show, the radio station that I work at, and the game finished about 5 o'clock. I just went straight to work and ran in and read the sports news out. Was on the show for 3 hours. Didn't even sleep.
Jesus. You're a machine, man. Absolutely. We got to get you, in addition to Superior Linen Service, maybe just if it's a coffee caffeine plug or endorsement, we got to get that there as well. All right. So SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Go read all of his, Rob's work up there. He's going to have content. He's got content up there right now. He's going to have so much more leading up to the draft, the day of the draft, recap of the draft, streams, videos, everything up at SeahawksDraftBlog.com. You have your you ranked your top 15 players in the draft in terms of talent, how you see it. So Caleb Williams, Harrison, Odunze, Neighbors, Browers, Fatano, Fagua. Is that how you pronounce his last name? I butcher it.
Fuaga. I think it's Fuanga.
Fuanga.
I think it's Fuanga.
I'm going to go with you, Fuanga. Robinson, Verse, Daniels, Murphy, Mims, Alt, Mitchell, and then J.C. Latham. There is going to be clearly, because it's just not going to be those first 15 guys selected. Of that group that you wrote down there as your top 15 players, who do you think will be available to Seattle at 16?
Mims definitely will be, I would suggest. It seems increasingly like that Chop Robinson will be. I think there's a chance that Jared Verse will be. And I just wonder a little bit whether I've been saying that I don't think either of them will make it to 16, but I do wonder if maybe if Fuanga or Fatanu will make it there, just because it'd be something pretty special. Every single mock draft has Fatanu with Seattle at 16. And I feel like I'm the only one going, it's too good. You know, like he's going to go earlier than that. So maybe I'm the one who's wrong and maybe he will last there. But I think there's a decent chance that there'll be several of the names on that top 15 that will be there, because not included in my top 15 are people like JJ McCarthy, who's going to go before the Seahawks pick. Olu Fashion, who's not in my top 15. A lot of people think he's going to go before Seattle picks. There's people like, there are, I'd probably say about 3 or 4 players that are not on my list that are going to go. And that means that you are going to have options at 16. And I think you should take advantage of that. I think you are going to get a top 10 talent with the 16th pick. Because the Seahawks are doing a better job than other teams of positioning themselves to go best player available. So I think it's a great opportunity.
He and you mentioned him, a bunch of these mock drafts who have had Troy Fautano there at 60, including Dane Brugler. You obviously respect Dane. I mean, I had Dane on my radio show for years, leading up to the draft. Going to try and sneak him on at some point, probably next week. He's got Fautano there at 16, and he writes, and even I think you noted as well that if he is there, you're like, run up to the podium and grab him right away. And again, we've discussed him a lot, and people would say, well, why do they don't need a tackle? I mean, they've got Abe Lucas. They don't need one. But as you note and have noted on here, it's an insurance policy for Abe Lucas. And again, we hope that nothing is wrong with him. But he, again, has a troublesome knee injury. But it's also this ability to move him inside and play guard. And again, you can never have enough good offensive linemen and find out where they can play and plug them into that spot.
Absolutely. And that's the great thing about it. It just creates flexibility. Get 5 guys in there and work it out in training camp. I mean, look, the thing I've been saying on the blog for a few weeks as well, Puck, is that let's say that you draft Troy Fautano and you say, okay, he's basically a more athletic Penei Sewell, and we're going to play him at right tackle because the Lions play Sewell at right tackle and Taylor Decker at left tackle. So you're going to put him at right tackle. What does that mean for Abe Lucas? Scott Huss, the last 2 seasons at Washington, he had a converted tackle who was the exact same size as Abe Lucas playing left guard. So if Abe Lucas is even okay to come back, you could kick him inside. But if you wanted to kick Troy Fautano inside, you can do that. You've got real options there and flexibility. Look, I think when you talk about Fautano, he's athletic, he's aggressive, he's got an A+ character. I interviewed him last week. The half an hour sailed by, but he's got an attitude to him. He's the kind of player that the Niners and the Rams are not going to want to face. So I think there's very few players, probably nobody who's a better fit for Seattle, given the coaching staff that's here, the scheme, the fit, the fact that he said he likes the rain. Puck, he's from Las Vegas, but when I interviewed him, he said, I prefer wet weather. I prefer wet and cold weather. I'm sick of the warm weather and the sun, he said, in Nevada. I offered to swap with him and he could come and live in Rotherham and I'll go and live in Vegas, but he didn't fancy that.
Yeah, because we, where you're at, where we're at, very similar weather. Yeah, I don't know. I don't vibe with Troy on that one. I'm not sure I sign up for 41 and rain and cold. I think I'd like the sun more. Wouldn't you?
Yeah. I'm 100% with you with that. I mean, I've just come back from Dubai, and as soon as I got back, I wanted to go back out there. So I completely agree with that. I think he'd be a home run pick, but he's not the only one. There are other players in there. Byron Murphy would be a good pick. Fuanga would be a good pick. I think they're a bit backlogged at defensive end already, but if they truly believe that Jared Verse or Chop Robinson is a special player, then sure, go and take them. And then there's still the quarterback thing. I'm not completely ruling this out because I don't know if you've seen this, Puck, but I was watching a 3-round mock draft, and Rick Spielman, the former Vikings GM, was on there, and he had Seattle's pick in round 3, and he said, I'm going to throw a curveball. I'm going to put Michael Pratt, the Tulane quarterback, with the Seahawks at 81. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Why is he doing that? Because I watch a lot of the stuff that they've done on CBS with Rick Spielman. He's never talked about that. He kind of just threw it out there. It made me think there must be just a few things doing the grapevine in the NFL that the Seahawks are going to take a quarterback relatively early in this draft, or it's going to be a priority for them. And then I finished watching that, and someone sends me a video of Peter Schrager telling Dan Patrick that the 2 teams that are really sort of interested in Michael Penix Jr. in round 1 are the Seahawks and the Raiders. And we've talked about they want to trade down. Let's imagine a situation where Penix doesn't go in the top 15 picks. Let's say that he is going to be someone who goes in the 20s rather than in the top 20. If they believe that Penix is the answer and they can move down, take him, get some more stock for day 2 or even early day 3, whatever it is, tell me you won't be excited about that. I mean, if they have that conviction to invest in him with Grubb on the staff and Huff and John Schneider, as picky as he's been with quarterbacks over the years, I, for one, would be quite excited to see how that would all play out and how it would work for Michael Penix.
If they get there, right, the Raiders pass on him or the Raiders don't take him, right? Because that kind of would feel like, if you look at the draft how it is now, there's been these talks of the Vikings wanting to move up at 11, that they like Jaden Daniels, that maybe if something happens, because we feel like the draft is going to start at 2 and 3, right? Because depending where Washington goes, and if Washington goes with May, there's been this talk that the Patriots are not sold on Daniels, so maybe they pass on Daniels, and then it starts to get active there. At least that's kind of what the rumorville is. Mike Garafolo talked about that a little bit, that maybe New England's not sold on Jaden Daniels, but again, this all could be a smokescreen. Who knows? May goes number 2, and then the Patriots end up taking Jaden Daniels number 3. But then there could be some shakeup in there after that, because you start looking at the quarterback. I mean, Arizona doesn't look like they're not going to take a quarterback. Chargers, no. Now the Giants could certainly be in a position to move up and maybe want to do something there at quarterback, but it feels like maybe the Raiders there at 13. If he doesn't go there, and the Raiders have been known, I guess, to like Jaden Daniels as well. If he doesn't go there, then yeah, maybe he's available at 16. Do you just grab him at 16 and don't worry about it? Like, how comfortable are you, Rob, of moving down in order to get him, but not to lose him at the same time?
It would depend, I suppose, on your grade and belief that he is a franchise quarterback. Because if you think that Michael Penix is an absolute no-brainer franchise quarterback, you are not trading down. You are not running the risk of, for example, Puck, the Rams taking him at number 19, and you having to play him twice a year for the whole of his career. With Sean McVay, by the way, calling his plays. You know, if you think he is legit, there's no way you're risking that. You're taking him. I just think it's fascinating, the whole situation with the quarterbacks this year, because we all kind of get caught up in the moment, don't we? Of like, what's the here and now? If you said Jaden Daniels was going to be the second overall pick a year ago, everyone would have laughed, because he would have been a mid-round pick at best. And he's had a fantastic season. He's elevated himself into a position where he's going to go in the top 3 picks. But we're talking about him like he's Trevor Lawrence. So there was like always destined for this. It's not. It's a very late thing in his career. When you watch Drake May's tape at times is really troublesome. Like, there's just decision-making all over the place. His footwork's never settled. He tries things that are just not going to come off in the NFL, that are just a bit too risky. And I don't think he's, people will say, oh, well, he's got the upside of a Josh Allen or a Justin Herbert. He hasn't. Like, he's a tier down from that. So there's problems there. People are going to push J.J. McCarthy into the top 5. I don't think he's a first-round pick at all, let alone someone that the Vikings had paid 3 first-round picks for. So I find it interesting that there has been all this talk of like 4 quarterbacks are nailed on. I know it's because the teams kind of need the quarterbacks up there, but I'm not surprised that in the last sort of 24 hours we've seen Elliot Wolf, who's the de facto GM for the Patriots, saying, yeah, we're open to trading down. We don't have to take a quarterback. I think if it was up to him, if he didn't have Robert Kraft on his shoulder, I think he'd take an offensive tackle or trade down and take an offensive tackle, because that's what the Wolves do. And the Commanders, they have to take one. I get that. But I just think the rest of it, it's all a huge mystery. I think this is a trenches draft. The quarterback's being elevated. I'll tell you, Puck, now, I spoke to someone I know who used to be heavily involved at the top end of the league about 2 months ago. And he thought a minimum of 5 quarterbacks was going to go in the first round. And he said that hardly any of them should. He says they're just all going to get pushed up. They're not going to have serious first round grades. They're all going to get pushed up. And it looks as if that's going to come to the fore. So with Penix, that's a long way to say if Penix gets to 16, they'll have to make a course where there's a franchise quarterback. But no other team in the league has better info on Michael Penix.
Of course. I mean, yeah, exactly right. You wrote about it too because people say, well, why would they take a quarterback? What's the point of taking a quarterback? Because obviously they still have Geno Smith. They've made a trade for Sam Howell, who, by the way, we made news on this when Garafolo a couple of weeks ago when he was on, saying that the team, because you brought up the Rams, would they be interested in Penix, that the Rams were the team that they were competing against the most for Sam Howell's services, that they had to outbid the Rams to get Sam Howell. So they know Stafford's not playing forever. And yeah, I think for having McVay's offense, intrigued about having Michael Penix, yeah, you want to keep him out of his hands. You wrote, though, about how some fans could be maybe hesitant to draft a quarterback. Why would they do that? But John Schneider's already done this. He has a history of doing this. Robin, you wrote about it back in 2008 when he was the director of football operations with the Packers.
Yes. So they had Brett Favre still. Obviously, he was coming towards the end of his career and was at that point where he was flirting with retiring every year. So it's not a surprise that they planned ahead. But they'd already drafted Aaron Rodgers in the first round. He was yet to become established NFL star to Aaron Rodgers. He was the backup. and they still drafted Brian Brome in the second round. So that was their depth chart at quarterback was Favre, first round pick, second round pick. That is serious investment at the quarterback position. That is a team that knows we are going to lose legendary player soon. Oh. We need to try and find next legendary player. And even with Aaron Rodgers in the chamber, they were going and getting Brian Brome. This, to me, is indicative of, I think, what John Schneider is going to start doing. He has said, and we've all kind of laughed a bit about it, Puck, where I want to draft a quarterback every year, and he's taken 2 in 14 years, and he was bringing that up in his press conferences, wasn't he, over the last sort of 3 months. I think this is what he's going to start doing now. I think he's going to take a lot of shots. Now, if that means Michael Penix in the first round, that's a shot. If it's not Michael Penix in the first round, I think it probably will be. Spencer Rattler, round 3, round 2, whatever. Michael Pratt, round 3, round 4. I think he's going to start bringing them in. And yes, I think you're right. The reaction to a lot of fans, well, why are they doing that? They've got Geno Smith. Geno Smith's 34 this year. You know, his cap hit's enormous next year. Yeah. This is a bit. If Geno Smith is going to start for the Seahawks this year, Paul, it's a huge year for him. Like, he has to prove that he can be consistently very good, not good for 8 games and bad for 8 games. He needs to prove it. Sam Howell is a cheap backup quarterback. They flipped picks for him, and they've even said he's not really challenging Geno Smith. He's the backup. There is nothing to suggest the Seahawks are not going to take one. I think John, maybe there was a lot of influence from Pete Carroll over the years in terms of not taking quarterbacks. I think John's going to do it his way now. And his way, I think, will be drafting a quarterback next week at some stage and drafting them regularly until they have the guy, their top guy, their franchise guy.
Okay, has the controversy of taking down the Seahawks pictures and murals inside the facility made it over to the pond? Has it made it across the pond?
It certainly has, because Adam, who I do my streams with, was commenting quite angrily about it yesterday. Puckett was seeking my opinion on it in our DMs. Okay, so it has made its way over here. And
for most people, most Seahawks fans, you're watching this, you're listening to this, you should be aware of this. Bob Condotta detailed it, and others in who covers the Seahawks, the Seattle Times, but others who cover the team have detailed this. So Mike Macdonald, since he's taken over, has taken out some of the things that have linked back to the Pete Carroll past. One was the basketball hoop that they had in the meeting rooms, the big meeting room. The other one was kind of the all-in signs that were around the facility. This other part that fans would never see, but like if you players see, coaches see, media sees it, because where you walk in the back of the building, you see it. It's really cool. It's just a wallpaper mural, so to speak, of the past of the Seahawks, but specifically the Carroll past. But it's not just about Pete Carroll. It's about those teams and won the Super Bowl and on the podium with the trophy and Marshawn Lynch's run and Beastquake and the Sherman tip and all that, celebrating the past. Well, they've had that taken down. And so there's one side which says, well, it's Mike Macdonald trying to establish his identity, and he doesn't want the team to feel, because Leonard Williams talked about it, doesn't want the team to feel like they've got to live up to that or be compared to that. They want to establish their own culture, their own feelings, or their own, not feelings, they're just their own brand within inside the facility. Then there's others, this is the category I fall into, well, this is your past, though. Like, you're not celebrating so much Pete Carroll, you're celebrating the past of, that was a great damn team that won a championship. You should strive to emulate that team, to even be beyond that team. That team won 1 championship, Rob. I mean, they could have been legendary. Let's go beyond those guys and win more. I'm a big believer in celebrating your past. They feel differently, I guess. I think it's a mistake by Macdonald and Schneider and the team. I don't know. I guess I understand how some fans feel about it, and I know they don't see it, so it's not a big deal. But I don't know. For me, it's a big deal because I like celebrating the past. Where do you kind of sit with that one?
So I was driving home from work today, and I was listening to the daily Puck drop, and I was thinking, I really hope Puck brings this up when we have a conversation later, because I heard your opinion on it, and I have to say, Puck, and please don't be angry with me.
No, I love when people disagree.
Absolutely love what they've done.
Okay.
I'm sorry, when I heard about it, I thought fantastic. And listen, I think we will all have memories of our own. Like I can look to my left here. I've got a picture of Marshawn Lynch grabbing his crotch after Beastquake 2 on the wall. And I have Cam Chancellor, a painting of Cam Chancellor celebrating the running back from the interception for a touchdown against the Panthers in the playoffs. And any kind of tat that I can buy from that era, I pretty much buy it. Like my house is a shrine to that era of Seahawks football. However, I also think that too often within sport we cling to the past a bit too much, and I definitely felt over the last few years, like anytime Pete Carroll had a chance to bring back one of his old players, Frank Clark, Bruce Irvin, Luke Wilson, they'd always be back. You'd see the guys, Sherm, Michael Bennett, Cliff, Cam, back at training camp. I'm like, oh, they're there again. The guys that we wish were still here. And I'd look at these other teams and I'd think, I want to be new. I want to be like the upstart team again. don't want to be the team that was good 10 years ago with the shadow of that hanging over and the old coach who's not getting it done now. I want new. I want sort of new heroes. New coach, new identity, new everything. And when I heard the hoop had gone and the all-in stuff, I thought fantastic. And then I heard the mural, the pictures and stuff. I just thought, do you know what? Make a new one. That's just what I wanted to do. I wanted to just move on from everything. I think we'll all have our memories. Every time you go to Seattle, you can't escape imagery from that era. And we all have our own kind of memories and stuff. And I love to watch the old games, Puck, and go and watch highlights, videos, and stuff like that. We've all kind of got our own memories. I'm looking forward to this. I want to see who's the next great group of Seahawks that are going to lead this team to a Super Bowl. I can't wait to see that. And if Mike Macdonald thinks this will help get them there, then to coin one of Carroll's greatest phrases, I'm all in.
Here's where I agree with not going. I think it's a mistake when it comes to personnel. Like when you want to, and I'm with you on that one. You want to go back and get that spark from Frank Clark or Bruce Irvin and these guys, Luke Wilson, or what have you, when they clearly are past their prime. Like I think that's a mistake. I don't agree with that at all. The basketball hoop, I'm totally on board with that stuff. Like the basketball hoop, the all-in signs, that was uniquely Pete Carroll. Because the whole basketball hoop thing was, there was a lot of layers to that. It's competition, right? That's the first and foremost thing. It's like these little games that he wanted to play to foster that competitive environment with his team. But that was Pete Carroll. And also playing basketball and shooting hoops is a fun way to do it. It breaks up the monotony of just football and meetings and all that stuff. Because who doesn't like to, for the most part, pick up a basketball and just shoot it? We all did it. Most of us did it as kids, right? So I get that. What I don't understand is getting rid of what your history was. I just think that you walk down a hall of champions or whatever. I think it's good to see what they did in the past to try to emulate or even top, to have it as maybe a carrot to have for your current team and your current organization. And I would say, well, then they should get rid of everything that's been associated with that championship team. They have the Super Bowl trophies in the lobby. Remove it then. Because why do we have the Super Bowl trophy there? It's a reminder of the past. So I just think that it's a reminder of a really special team that was awesome. And there was a lot of great people that are still within that organization, like top, the personnel that were a part of that. And I think the past should be celebrated in terms of accomplishments, not bringing them back to rekindle something. I got no problem with that side of it. I don't know. I think it's a way for him to show some type of authority and power that I don't think was necessary. I don't know. I think for the former players, Rob, that you want to be associated with the team still, and I'm not coming back and playing, but like if Doug Baldwin wants to hang out or Richard Sherman or one of these guys, they should all be welcome back. Kind of like I made reference to it like in college. I like when colleges bring these players back and allow them to be a part of the program and all that kind of stuff. And I think other organizations in pro sports do a really good job of that. And I think it's cool. The Cardinals in baseball are like the best at it. I wonder how they feel about it. We're just going to rip down what we did. I don't know. For me as a fan, it didn't sit well.
It feels like a good time to remind everybody that everyone's kind of got a nice impression of Mike Macdonald, and he's very neat and tidy, and he's been very personable and friendly. Yeah, this guy worked for Harbaugh. He was Harbaugh's defensive coordinator in Michigan. Okay, so this guy has only ever worked for the Harbaughs, so he's going to be a little bit different than Pete. So listen, it really doesn't. I understand why you have strong feelings about it, and I understand that when Adam was messaging me yesterday, he was pretty irate about it. But I must admit, there was part of me, Puckett, you can hate me for this.
No, I don't hate you at all. It's just your opinion.
Yes, it's a new start. It's like a fresh. Everything's new, and I must admit, my first thought was, I hope they're going to take this new energy into the draft. Like, we're going to have a really cool draft next week and plot a new course to success, because there's nothing better than seeing the Seahawks at the top. And
for sure.
I hope there's a new mural soon. And Mike Macdonald's the guy with that trophy in his hand. Yeah.
All right. Rob Staton, every single Thursday, SeahawksDraftBlog.com. It's all brought to you by Superior Linen Service, family owned and operated since 1926. Superior Linen Service provides the highest quality of products and service to the greater Puget Sound area. Please get a free quote today at suplinen.com. Give them a call at 253-383-2636. Check out Rob's work, SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Also, YouTube and his social media page at Rob Staton. You have so much content up there right now. Please promote it. What do you have in the works here leading up to the draft next week?
So, at least 2 mock drafts, a cap update from Curtis Allen before the draft. I'm interviewing Jack Westover, the Washington Titan, in about 45 minutes. Okay. I will have my annual conversation, which I've been doing for about 12 years now, with my friend Tony Pauline from Sports Skeeter, which will be taking place tomorrow. So, and then next week, that's all before Sunday. So, next week, it's, I've cleared my schedule. I might work in 2 days next week. It's just draft. So check out the blog, check out the YouTube channel. There's going to be a ton of stuff.
You are the best. You are you are the absolute rock star covering this stuff for the Seahawks. Rob, I appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Nice, man. Speak to you next week.
There he is, Rob Staton, Seahawks Draft Blog, every Thursday right here at Puck Sports. Watch it on YouTube. Listen to it, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you find your podcast. We'll talk to you soon. As always, we promise to be better.
Shirt, no shoes, no ties.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah. I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rob you. But you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for?
We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!